What are we doing? What are we doing? Oh my god, you guys are in my bedroom. This is weird. Alexa, disconnect from Christina's iPhone.
Now disconnected from Christina's iPhone.
Hey girl, hey. Am I live? Y'all, I got 2 drinks today. I won't be drinking alcohol because my stomach's upset. And I got some water because I'm getting over being sick somehow in between. You know what? It's this raggedy weather we got. It's 35 in the morning. It's 72 in the afternoon. That's why my nose is giving me the runs. I really hope I don't spill that drink. Okay, that was a lot of blah, 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 blah. Blah, 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 blah. Anyways, hey girl, hey. Welcome back to my channel. Thanks for clicking on this video. Today we are getting into another true crime video. Ooh, excuse me. I'm gonna pull this in here because I don't want my yabbies out. Ugh. Okay, let's bring it in. I need something to drink. What do you guys think about the background? You're in my bedroom today. Yeah. We're talking about the true crime case, Sarah Jo Pender. Sarah Jo Pender. She's from Indianapolis. I don't claim Indianapolis, but I do live in Indianapolis. She went to Lawrence Central High School. She graduated in 1997. That's who we will be talking about today. We definitely, of course, are going to touch on other people who are important to today's story. But let's talk about Sarah. Sarah, she graduated high school in 1997. She about 10 years older than me. Yeah, she about 10 years older than me. So I want to go in a little bit about Sarah first. Sarah graduated high school. She went on, she found a full-time job. She was working as a secretary. And Sarah, she's a nice looking girl. She's a nice looking young lady. I'll put her picture up somewhere. She's a nice looking lady. And this boyfriend that she had at the time, his name was Richard Hull, aka Rick. That's what we're going to call him in today's story. Slick Rick. We're going to call him that. Rick. That was his name. So, Rick, not a 10. Not at all. She's out of your league, man. Sarah was out of your league. I don't know how the two of them got together. I think he locked her down because he knew. Shawty was way above anything he could have ever obtained. But he had her. He had her. So those two locked it in. Rick worked as a bouncer in a club. He had a past criminal history. He had dealing and distribution of methamphetamines, and a couple other misdemeanor charges that go up and through there, but just a drug dealer. Dealing drugs, it makes sense. He's working with the night crowd. He could have been on the up and up, but from all sources, he was doing bad. He was doing what he wanted to do. So he lived with the two of them end up hooking up, dating, moving in with one another. The relationship moved fast. It was like 6 months in. Boom, bam, bop. Let's get a place together. And I'm assuming they broke because they had 2 other friends that they lived with. So I'm assuming they all split the rent. Let's hope so. Sarah was the only one that I could find information on with a full-time job. That doesn't mean anybody else didn't have a full-time job. But again, today's story is talking about Sarah Jo Pender. So they lived with 2 roommates, and their names were Andrew Cataldi and Trisha Nordman. I'll put their pictures on the screen as well. These 2 the 4 of them all lived together. The 2 couples lived together. And Rick and Andrew were friends. At the time, they were friends. But they also were in the business of selling drugs. So anything happens when drugs are involved. Drugs, monies, guns, it all comes with the territory, right? So let's talk about the morning of October 24th, 2000. For the 99s and the 2000s. Not like that. Serious. We're serious. And respectfully, I do want to say, I joke and I kid a lot, but true crime, this is some heavy stuff. I don't want anyone viewing this to take it as me thinking it's a joke, because it's definitely not a joke. These are real people. These are their real lives. However, if I am going to insert my personality, I make light of my own pain and bullshit. That's just how I deal with life. So, yeah, let's go on. On the morning of October 24th, 2000, Rick and Sarah went to Walmart. Why, you may ask? Rick's a convicted felon. He cannot buy a firearm. He tried to buy firearms elsewhere. However, that didn't fall through. That didn't work. So, Sarah went with Rick to Walmart. And am I the only person that didn't know that you could buy handguns at Walmart? I just find it weird. Now, this is 2000. But I just always assume you had to go to a gun store, show a license, purchase it. It's kind of like when you go out to dinner with somebody who's not over 21. Excuse me. And then they sip your drink and the bartender be like, where's your ID? I don't know. Maybe that's my fear. But other people, clearly not. Sarah and Rick go to Walmart. They get a handgun. The clerk rings Sarah up after Rick got the things that he desired. He got a, 12-gauge shotgun and some ammunition and some shells. He got a 12-gauge shotgun and he got some ammunition. Sarah paid for it and they walked out. Later that night, the couple, Rick and Sarah, they went over to Sarah's family's house, hung out, had a good old time. Actually, not her house. They just hung out with the family. They didn't go to the family's house. They hung out with the family. Sorry. They hung out with Sarah's family that night, and then the two of them went home. When they got home, there's always one side. There's always two sides to a story. I'm going to tell you the side, and then you can do your own research and decide what you believe will take place after this. Sarah and Rick get home, and Sarah goes out for a walk. She goes out for a walk. She lived in the downtown, south side of Indianapolis area, and I'm not sure what it looked like in the 2000s, but I know what it looked like now. And I wouldn't be going for no walk at about 11 o'clock at night. Not as a woman in downtown Indianapolis. No. Mm-mm. But that's what she said she did. Sarah said she went for a walk. And when she got back, she found Rick, Slick Rick, loading the body into the back of a truck. I'm trying to think, what the hell would I do? I think I would freak out. I would cry. I just might run. I'm a runner. I'm a track star, y'all. I think I might run, because I would be like, is my man's on a killing spree? Am I next? I digress. So, it comes to be that the two roommates that Sarah and Rick had, Andrew and Trisha, those were the two people that were killed by Rick and Sarah. Sarah got back home when Rick was loading one of the bodies into the bed of the truck. Sarah, being his girlfriend, she goes and gets a blanket and she helps him load the second body into the bed of the truck. The two of them drive about 2 blocks, block-ish, not far, maybe a 5 or 6 minute drive. Y'all, not far. I'm gonna put a picture of the map of the two locations where they drop the bodies, where they load the bodies, where they drop the bodies. Not far. They drop them into a trash can behind the business. They go home. Sarah goes to work the next day. Rick, he borrows a plug adapter from a next door neighbor named Jana. and he attempts to clean up the mess in the house, i.e. the blood. From Rick's account of events, him and Andrew got into an argument over Rick's sister owing Andrew some money. Andrew went upstairs to go get this handgun, this 12-gauge shotgun, 12-gauge shotgun that he somehow knew that Rick had bought earlier that day. Threatens him. Andrew and Rick fight over the shotgun, and Rick ends up accidentally shooting Andrew in the chest, and then shooting Trisha in the chest and in the head during this scuffle. So I'm gonna Google a picture of a shotgun. Hold on. I want to be sure what I'm thinking is correct. Yeah, that's what Rick says. They were struggling over this shotgun, and both Trisha and Andrew were shot in the chest. Trisha also was shot in the head. So when Sarah got home, she helps homie load the bodies into the bed of the truck, dispose of the bodies. She goes to work the next day. Okay. Sarah and Rick then returned the truck. So the truck that they loaded the bodies up on was a truck that Rick had borrowed from his friend. I don't think I would be borrowing anybody's car. But y'all, this is a whole different life. I can't apply it to what I would do, right? It's no battery flasher. It's not. I'm gonna leave my hair alone one day, but not today. So they returned this truck that they borrowed from their friend. So they had initially borrowed this truck because they were going to clear out the things in the basement to make, what do you think dealers do? Make a meth lab. They was going to make a meth lab in the dang on basement. They've been blowing up. Meth labs have been blowing up since the beginning of meth. Why would you put it in the basement? That don't make no sense. Anyways, that's what they were going to do with the truck. So that's why they had borrowed the truck from Rick's friend. So they had took the truck back, and while they were over there, that's absolute. Can you imagine? I'd be mad if somebody borrowed my clothes and they brought them back. Disgusting. Anyways, he burns a couple items while he's over there. He burns some blood, some items with blood on them in the trash over there while he's dropping off the truck to Rick. While Rick is dropping off the truck back to his friend. What is said friend's name? It's not important. He just let the man borrow his truck. He didn't ask for none of this. When the bodies were found, the police weren't able to identify them. They didn't have any IDs on them, obviously. And they took pictures of their tattoos and put them on TV, asking for the public's help to identify these two bodies, male and female, gave an estimate of their age, and they wanted somebody to come forward with help because they were at a wit's end. They didn't know who these people were. So Jana, that neighbor that Rick borrowed that plug adapter from, she was like, let me call the police. Because I've seen those tattoos before. And that's odd that he wanted to clean. He ain't never ever cleaned. Interesting. If 2 + 2 is 4, what the is this? Anyways, I'm clearly, my energy is clearly different today. I don't know. I feel like my last video, I'm going to put it up here because it really didn't do as well as I would have liked it to do. My last 2 videos, actually, I'm going to put them up in the cards. Y'all go watch. If you haven't watched, go watch. Make sure you're subscribed and make sure you're coming back to see me. Yeah, things was not adding up, but shout out to the neighbor who reported it because the police were then able to identify Andrew and Trisha. And around the same time that Rick was returning the truck, Rick and Sarah were returning the truck to their friend, the police had received the information about Andrew and Trisha, and they got a search warrant for Andrew and Trisha's home. Just so happened to be the same home that Sarah and Rick were sharing. And they saw this half-ass job that Rick did cleaning up the blood. They found that, yes. So, on October 27th, Rick was arrested. Rick was arrested, and he admitted to the murders. And Sarah, Lord, y'all, Rick admitted to the murders. But after that, Sarah goes to the police station and turns in bloody items that are Rick's clothing. Bloody clothing that Rick either, I guess, had on in the commission of the crime or what have you. She turns it into the police. Here, Sarah brought the bloodstained pants that belonged to Rick to the police, and Sarah is quoted telling detectives, "After he committed these murders, I did not call the police, but instead stayed with him out of love, fear, loyalty, and sheer stupidity." Girl, yes. Sheer stupidity. I'm running. Y'all was outside. He had a body in his hands or was slapping the truck closed. When you came up, that was your chance, girl. That was your chance. So, you guessed it, on October 28th, on October 28th, Sarah was arrested, charged with the murders as well. 2 years after Sarah's taken into custody, about 2002, this is when the trial begins. So, Sarah Jo Pender, she's in the media more than Rick is, because the media paints her as this mastermind to the crime. She actually gets coined the female Charles Manson. We want to go back to the shotgun. Sarah bought Rick the shotgun. And that's just helps the prosecution with their case. She bought the item, she bought the shotgun used in the commission of the crime. Check. So, another item that's entered into evidence for this trial is a letter. An admission of guilt letter from yours truly, from Sarah, her co-defendant, her sweet love. He says that he got the letter from Sarah and he gives it to his attorney. It's entered into evidence. And let's read what that letter says. A medical examiner actually will go on to, not medical examiner, document examiner will go on to say that it is written in Sarah's scribe. This is her hand. Yeah. So they're going to testify that it's written by Sarah. So they got the letter as well entered into evidence. But this is what the letter says. I wish I could go back and change the events of that night. Drew was so mean that night. I just snapped. I didn't mean to kill them. It must have been the acid. Drugs may have been. When you said you would try to take the blame, I knew that you loved me deeply. At first I thought you would tell, but you stuck to your promise. P.S. Destroy this. Y'all, me reading it sounds ridiculous. And I really want to hope that the jury is not sitting there like, oh my gosh, she said that? Excuse me. The soda's doing its job. My stomach is feeling better, y'all. So that was introduced into evidence. Document examiner testified that it matches her handwriting in comparison to other documents and letters retrieved. The evidence is against her as well. And there is another person who testifies that Sarah admitted her guilt to him. There's a guy who Sarah ends up being a pen pal with while she's in Marion County Jail awaiting trial. She ends up being a pen pal with this guy. His name is Floyd Pennington. And I don't like to pin everybody's name, because they're just not important characters. But this character, he is important as to what we're going to say today. So Floyd Pennington and Sarah end up getting together, both faking an illness and going to the hospital, scheduling a time through communications to both fake sick so that they can meet up at the hospital. So Floyd is a snitch, and he is working with the detective on the case to get Sarah to say incriminating information. So Sarah and Floyd do end up meeting together, and Floyd goes on to testify later that Sarah admitted to him what happened that night, that she admits guilt, and that she is in fact the mastermind of the crime, that she was aware of what was going on. So Floyd is another pin in the case. So with all of that, Sarah is found guilty of 2 counts of murder, and Rick also is found guilty later on for 2 counts of murder. With Sarah, she got sentenced to, Sarah got 110 years for the 2 murders. And Rick, I believe he got 90 years, 2 45-year sentences consecutively. I believe that's what he got. He got a long time, more than his lifetime. So Rick, it's really funny that he got sentenced to 2 consecutive 45-year sentences, because Rick was trying to make it, he was going with the media. His defense was going with the media. He took a plea deal so that he would avoid trial, but he wanted it to be this mitigating factor that Sarah set him up to do it, right? Clearly not a ride or die. She was out of your league, and you should have left her there. Anyways, he was willing to throw her under the bus to secure a better deal for himself. I'm going to get better at this, guys. Just make sure you stay tuned for the ride. I'm going to get better at this. So let's go back to Sarah. So Sarah was 19 at the time that this happened. 21 at the... 21. Can you do something? Wait. Sarah was 21 at the time that this happened. She was 23 at the time she went to trial. And at the time of her escape from Rockville Correctional Facility, I was 19. I was 19 when this happened. I don't remember this at all. And I, at the time, did not live far from, did I? I'm thinking of 2 different prisons. I don't remember it all. I don't remember it being on the news, but yes, it was on the news. Sarah escaped from Rockville Correctional Facility, which, when everything unfolds about her escape, it makes it seem like the prosecution was right to, like, name her the leader of this story, because it seems like she manipulates this prison guard into helping her. So this prison guard, I'm not going to throw his name out there. You guys can Google it. And not because it's like, oh, out of respect, just because I don't feel like scrolling down my notes. But anyways, this prison guard helps her to escape. So it seems like she manipulated him. They had some kind of relationship, friendship, whatever. Her and another inmate, another cellmate that she had, end up being the partners when she escapes. So this correction officer that worked there, he brings in civilian clothing, places them in the gym. Sarah changes into the civilian clothing, and then she walks out onto the dock where the van is, where the correctional van is, and she gets into the back of the van. This correction officer, he knew who was going to be working that day and knew if they were going to check the back of the truck or not. So Sarah gets past the gates. There's no checks done on the truck, and Sarah's dropped off by the correction officer outside of the gate. From there, she's picked up by her ex-cellmate, and she gives her a couple bucks and gives her a ride, and then Sarah figures out the rest from there. They figured out that Sarah was gone, ran the tapes back, figured out how she got out, and then they went from there, using the media again to help. So this happens in August, I believe 2008. Yep. August 2008. This happens in August 2008. Sarah is on the run from August to December 2008. Sarah ends up in Chicago, which is crazy because it's not that far from Indianapolis. I'm thinking that she was trying to get more money to get further, but she takes on this persona of Ashley Thompson. That's her alias. She is working in Chicago, the north side of Chicago, but she's also featured on America's Most Wanted. Very popular show. So she's featured there. There's another neighbor. Shout out to these neighbors. Second time you done got caught up by a neighbor, honey. So they collect on that ass. They told the police. They believed that that was so-and-so staying in the apartment next door. The police came and got her ass. She ended up back in jail. So when they transported her back to Indianapolis, they put her in solitary confinement. In the shoe. So I talked a lot about Sarah, and I don't want to negate the fact that 2 people lost their lives. Trisha was an innocent bystander. Andrew caught up with the wrong kind of people, doing the wrong kind of thing. And then there's Sarah, who's just attracted to this crazy bad guy. So later on down the road, Rick ends up writing an affidavit and submitting it to the court that he paid his cellmate at the time, before sentencing, to look at letters that Sarah had written before and to draw up this letter and gave it to his attorney. There were never any fingerprints of Sarah's found on this letter, found on the envelope. It was only fingerprints of Rick and his cellmate at the time. That's one thing, right? And then you have this snitch. Let's go back to this snitch. Floyd ends up having this snitch list that is found in his belongings, and it's all kind of names of people who he is willing to help this police officer, this detective, pin information on. So whatever I can get. And something that I didn't say about Floyd was that Floyd was a SO. Floyd was a offender. And yes, that kind of offender. I don't know if Sarah knew that. I'm assuming she didn't. But he was a SO. He had robbery charges. I believe he cooperated with this detective so that this detective could close these cases and that Floyd could get a lighter sentence, which he did. And he did ultimately go out and commit another SA against someone and end up back in jail. So really creepy, disgusting guy that Sarah somehow ended up being a pen pal of. Who knows if this was set up or somehow the two were linked. Excuse me, sorry. But I say all that to say, here recently in the news, and very recently, last month, the prosecutor on the case, Larry Sells, he came out and said that he did not agree with he doesn't now agree with what was said, what he said about Sarah, about her being the female Charles Manson. He did not know about the snitch list, that Floyd had false testimony against her. He didn't know about the fake letter, and it does not fit that she was the mastermind in all of this. Me personally, I don't believe she's the mastermind either. I feel like she was just I don't know how many times have I hopped back on this bed? Now I'm getting irritated. Note to self, buy a new SD card. Future Christina, editing this video, buy some new SD cards. This is the 4th time we had to delete some stuff. Anyways, what I was saying, I don't think she was the mastermind in this. I think she was just a person of unfortunate events. She's definitely not innocent. I'm not saying it at all. She had choices and she made her choices. And she is still in the Department of Corrections living with those choices. However, I do think with the new information, I think that's something that the prosecutor's office, this is what Larry Sales, the prosecutor at the time, he's now retired too. And I think it's very weird. There must be, I feel like there's other information that he would be retired and then put this on the news publicly, that the decision that he made then with the information that he had is no longer a choice that he stands on. So I feel like there's more information. I don't think she's getting out of prison, but I will say she has been in there over 20 some years for assisting in the disposal of the bodies. I do not believe that she was present when it happened, but I also don't know how much I don't know, right? She could have been present. I'm not going for no walk, like I said, at 11 o'clock at night. She could have been, but the original confession that Rick gave said that he did it. And they didn't find any bloody clothing that belongs to her, even though she did help him dispose of the bodies. I don't know. Let me know what you think. That is all for today's video. Let me know what you think. Leave it in the comments below. Make sure you are subscribed. Make sure you hit that thumbs up button. I will see you in my next video. Thank you guys for watching, and adios.